Apologize for the delay. We're usually much more timely. Call to order our zoning hearing for 351 Jefferson Street and 467 Fairfield Road, and I'll hand it over to our solicitor, Lawrence.
Thank you so much. This evening we do have a public hearing scheduled that was advertised in the newspaper as required. Notice was given that a hearing was going to be held this evening, August 9th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to be held at the Plymouth Township Municipal Building, 700 Belvoir Road, Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, 19462, to consider for adoption an amendment to the zoning map referenced in the Plymouth Township Zoning Ordinance, Appendix B to the Code of Ordinances of the Township of Plymouth by rezoning tax map parcels 49-00-05596-00-7 and 49-00-03451-00-1 from the D Residential District to the Residential Special District. The ordinance to be considered and acted upon is the following. An ordinance of the Township of Plymouth amending the zoning ordinance, Appendix B, by amending the zoning district map to rezone certain lands identified as Montgomery County tax map parcels 49-00-05596-007 and 49-00-03451-001 from D Residential to Residential Special District. The public hearing is going to be held for the purpose of receiving comments and recommendations of interested individuals residing within the municipality concerning the proposed ordinance. This notice was advertised on March 30, this was published on July 20th, 21 and July 27th, 21 in both the Times Herald and the Times Herald Digital. We do have a couple of township exhibits that will enter into the record. The first is the proof of publication of the ordinance, which will mark as T1. And the second is a copy of the draft ordinance, which we will mark as T2. And third, we did have a couple of public comments that were submitted by email to the township. It appears that these individuals are not able to attend this evening, so we would enter those into the record. The first is an email dated August 4th, 2021, and it was sent from Vittorio and Kathleen Messina. Oh, okay, so you're here. And the second was dated August 9th, 2021, and was sent to the township manager from Deborah Del Mar. So we'll mark those collectively as T3. And I see the applicant's attorney is here this evening.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Bagley. I'm from the law firm of Whistle Pearlstein. I'm here for Plymouthtowne 2 tonight. I have some exhibits to provide the council. I think they'll make this pretty much self-explanatory. If it's all right with council, I'll hand those up.
Thank you.
Applicants, exhibits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just go. Thank you.
And we'll note that the township has received applicants' exhibits 1 through 10.
It's up to the council's pleasure. I have one witness. I was just going to do a colloquy between my witness and me to try and make this a little bit more self-evident, if that's okay with council.
Okay.
I have one witness, it's Keith Tornetta.
Just state and spell your full name, please.
Keith Tornetta, A-P-I-T-H, Tom, O-R-N-E-T-T-A.
You sound sort of testimony about the truth, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Mr. Tornetta, what's your business address and your business and title?
So I work for Tornetta Properties, Inc., located at 126 West Germantown Pike in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I'm the vice president there. Tornado Properties is the managing agent for Plymouthtowne 2, which are the owner of these parcels.
Mr. Tornetta's curriculum vitae or resume is Exhibit 10 or tab 10 in the exhibits I gave you. How long have you been in the land development business?
About 23 years.
And could you,
About 23 years.
and if we are looking at it, tab 1 of the exhibits, the applicant's exhibits, can you orient council to where the subject property is?
Yeah, so the two parcels are directly south of Plymouthtowne Apartments in Plymouth Township on Fairfield Road, frontage on Fairfield Road.
And if we are using tabs 2 and 3, can you orient them to the two parcels in question that are the subject of the application?
Yes, so 351 Jefferson Street, it's about 2.5 acres. It's signified, I think, is green on one of the applicants. And 467 Fairfield Road, it's about 1.3 acres, which is brown attached on the exhibit.
If you're looking at Exhibit 3, the rectangular parcel is crosshatched as brown, and the irregularly shaped line is crosshatched as green. Who's the owner of these two subject properties?
Plymouthtowne 2,
And what's your relationship with Plymouthtowne 2?
I'm a vice president there.
How are the lots currently zoned?
D residential,
And what does the map amendment seek to change them
RS or residential special.
to? Under the D residential zoning, what's allowed by right on the two lots, the tracks?
So among other things, single-family homes, two-family detached and semi-detached dwellings, and townhomes.
And was the development of the lots for townhomes, was that explored?
Yes, it was.
And how was it explored?
So in 2019 and most of 2020, we looked at developing these two parcels into a 18-lot rental townhouse subdivision. We went so far as to fully engineer civil plans, look at architectural plans, concepts to make sure that we had the right footprints that we would be happy with. We met with council on a couple occasions, also some outside agencies like DEP and County Conservation District.
I'd like to hand up another exhibit. This would be applicant's exhibit 11.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tornado, what is applicant's exhibit 11? Can you identify that?
Yeah, that was the latest design for the 18-home townhouse.
Now, to achieve that layout, how many variances would be required?
So the latest version had 7 variances, with the possibility of a couple more, as we never determined if the main access would have been considered a private drive or a street. It could have added more.
And how many waivers from land development would be needed to achieve that?
10.
Okay. And was there also a need, a potential need for a separate emergency road access?
Yes.
Why were there so many variances and waivers required?
Well, mainly the configuration of the usable ground. Very disproportionate in the road frontage versus the size of the parcels. So much so that we couldn't configure a usable townhouse floor plan or footprint while also providing a main drive-through with driveways up to the townhomes. Additionally, there were close contours on the site. It's very slopey at spots. That, along with, again, the lack of public road street frontage, we weren't able to design a fully accessible emergency access point for the development, which led to the cul-de-sac, which it's allowed by code, but not preferable, at least in my opinion. The last major hurdle was the primary access. So while there was a existing curb cut for the old house that was there, you had to widen it to provide for full movement vehicular access. And in doing that, with the constraints of the width of that part of the site, we couldn't get it to line up with Bolby Road, which, again, I don't know if that's a requirement, but it is good practice to try and get those cross streets that face each other directly across from each other and not offset.
Even if it could be a line, that private street or road was coming in at an angle, wasn't it? Fitted in.
Yeah, a little bit, but definitely offset.
So what advantages does rezoning to residential special hold?
With the rezoning, we'd be able to carry or continue the existing apartment use down, which.
Just interrupt you for 1 second. Is that shown on the existing tab 4?
Correct, that's the current conceptual plan that is engineered. We know that.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt. You were saying that integrates it with the existing apartment complex?
Yes, again, by allowing the rezoning of the map amendment, we're able to continue that RS apartment use, which would eliminate the cul-de-sac. It would eliminate the need for another emergency access and completely eliminate that full movement vehicle access on Fairfield Road. And
now on this tab 4, it shows the road, Fairfield Road, being connected to a parking lot. Is that right?
Yes. So in part of the conceptual design, we wanted to make sure that we could fit a full movement emergency access in case the township or government authority required it. The reason why we're showing it and we wanted to design it is there's a telephone pole right there. And at the time, we needed to know if we could provide that full movement emergency access or without moving the telephone pole or not. We're able to. It's just, is that, I don't know if that's going to be a requirement or not for land development.
So it's possible in the land development process, if it were to go that far, that emergency access may possibly be eliminated.
That is correct. Also, another, I guess, benefit with the rezoning is that the plan would be to combine and merge these two parcels with existing Plymouthtowne. By doing that, we're able to utilize the existing improvements that can handle these additional 32 units. It also internalizes the development, which in my opinion is very important. You're using one access point instead of in the townhouse plan 2. It's easier to maintain for the property owner. And it would eliminate all the variances needed and reduce the waivers from 10 to 6.
Is this similar to the process of rezoning from D to RS that was granted to Plymouthtowne in 2010?
Yes, it's very similar, almost exact. That was done in 2010 in anticipation of the construction of 70 units, which we call Plymouthtowne Premier, that was completed in 2019.
Is the requested map amendment supported by the Montgomery County Planning Commission?
It is. In their letter, they had one comment with respect to zoning. And going from memory, I believe they asked that the applicant, us, design to 3 important standards, 1 being building coverage, 2 being impervious coverage, and 3 being green space area. When you look at the 2 parcels by themselves with the current apartment design, We meet all those standards in RS, and we actually meet the standards in D residential, which is more stringent. And as a side note, if you look at everything combined and merged in the existing Plymouth Town, there's so much extra non-pervious and green space with these two parcels. The way it's designed is it eliminates two existing non-conformities in existing Plymouth Town, which are green space and impervious coverage.
So the applicant's not asking for the change in zoning to avoid building coverage, impervious coverage limitations?
No.
Or requirement for green area, because they need them all, correct?
Correct.
What was the result of the Township Planning Commission meeting?
So we met with the Planning Commission Wednesday the 4th. Unfortunately, I think they only had 2 of 7 members, so it wasn't a quorum. However, we did discuss it and got some good feedback. With the 2 members, one, I believe, recommended for it and one no.
The rest of the exhibits, just to briefly go over those, you have, I think tab 5 is the County Planning Commission letter. Tab 6 is correspondence from the neighbor, is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Travy, who's directly adjacent, met with them many times, kept them in the loop for the last couple of years. Actually, made some adjustments to better suit the development for them multiple times. You know, them being happy with the end result is important to us. You know, we've been in the township a long time and want to keep good relations with our neighbors. I also spoke with Mr. Kaminsky, who's another adjacent neighbor, and Mr. Moravli, who's the lower adjacent neighbor. They did not provide letters, but as of yet, but they were verbally did not have an issue with the development, the change of zoning and development.
Tab 7 is just the D residential regulations, correct?
Yes.
And tab 8 is the residential special regulations.
Correct.
Tab 9 is the application.
Yes.
And we already went over tab 10, that's your resume. We don't have any other questions for the applicant right now.
Thank you. Now would be appropriate time for any members of council to ask questions or members of the public to speak.
I just have one question. I don't know, Lauren, if it's a question you can answer best, or in the current D residential, it would allow for triplexes or quadruplexes. How, from a legal standpoint, from a characteristic standpoint, is that different than the apartments that you'd be looking to put in with the change?
So, again, my understanding, one would be, first of all, that's not a product that we believe is marketable and would work. We have a very unique product at Plymouth Town, and in fact, so that it looks like kind of a townhouse and feels more like a home. The biggest thing are the private entrances. You would not have that in the triplex or quadruplex. Our neighbors next door, I believe, have that, but that is not our product, and we feel that it just wouldn't work the same as existing Plymouth Town.
And in the original 17, was that 17 units in the townhomes?
18.
Did I count that correctly?
18.
18 townhome units compared to 32 apartment units, is that correct?
Yes.
From your perspective or your experience, do you feel like there would be a difference in traffic in and out, cars per unit, anything to that effect?
So I believe it would be similar. We have not completed those studies yet, but what it does do, which we've shown, is, again, I'll go back to internalizing.
And I apologize, I'm probably asking questions that are not really for the zoning.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'll do my best to answer. But what I think we have shown is we're able to internalize it, which, you know, eliminates that extra widening curb cut. It eliminates, you know, having to rely on a cul-de-sac to get, a ladder truck in your development. That's a big thing. Those are big things in my opinion.
What would the size of the families in townhouses, how would they compare to the size of the families within apartments?
Well, I can speak to usable floor area. So the townhomes, what we were looking at were, 4 stories, or 3.5. They were a full basement, a first floor, second floor, and then a loft. And we could fit that in within the height regulations. So probably square footage wise, finished space, over 3,000 square feet versus one unit, one apartment is average 1,050. So when you add all those up, that usable square footage, the 32 units are actually less than the 18 townhomes.
I just have one last question. In the previous phases of Plymouthtowne, currently, right now, how many total apartment units are there?
235,
Okay, so 235, and this would be an additional 32.
32, correct.
Thank you.
I have some questions. One was, why wouldn't you be able to integrate townhouses the way you're integrating even greater number of apartments?
So the biggest thing is we couldn't, the reason why the apartment plan works is we're able to combine the lots because it's the same, similar use allowed by RS zoning. We can't do that with townhomes because it's a different zoning. And that's where all those dimensional variances come from. So we can't have one big parcel with townhomes as a use and apartments as a use. You're not allowed to do that because it's not allowed in the same zoning district.
And the apartment use, are you impinging on any of the current drainage, stormwater basin that's there?
No, so, again, because typically we build and own and manage and are here for a long time. When we designed and built that basin for the 70 units, we had a good feeling that the balance of the land of Fairfield and Jeffersonville, or Jefferson Street, would be developed into something. So we oversized that basin, made the assumptions that we did, and the size of that is pretty close to what we're going to need. There are some adjustments, but we will not be encroaching into that current basin other than making it a little, I guess, bigger or some structural changes to the outputs.
So when you built the original basin, you were anticipating more apartments?
Well, we were anticipating townhomes at the time, and then after going back and forth of what we did the last year and a half, it turned to apartments.
I think during land development, if it were to go, if that to be accomplished, Plymouthtowne could demonstrate that that basin is adequate to take the drainage from the new 32 units.
That is correct.
And I guess just to clarify for the audience, and the purpose of this hearing is to determine whether or not it would be appropriate to change the zoning classification. A lot of the other issues, whether they be stormwater management, traffic, those types of things would occur at the land development, which would be further down the line.
That's correct.
When you didn't get a quorum at the planning commission, was there any thought to waiting until the planning commission people could be available? I mean, you only had 2 out of 7.
Well, I think because they were just a recommending board, it was advice of staff there to just move forward and have the hearing. There were residents there, so it was nice to get their feedback also. And I mean, quite frankly, we've been working on this for almost 2 years because of the change, because it's the better development to do the rezoning, not only for us, but also for the township. That's I really believe that. It's taken a while, and I think we're ready to move forward if we get the rezoning.
How many variances do you expect to request for apartments if it goes to residential special?
0. We don't need
0?
Correct.
Okay, and if you were not to get variances for the townhouse use to keep within D, what would happen? If those variances were decided not to be feasible for...
Well, it's my opinion that we would meet all the criteria to allow those variances because of the site constraints. I mean, that's...
But they're variances, so how do you say
Correct.
you meet them? Because you're varying from our current ordinances.
Well, there's certain criteria that you have to meet in order to, get the variances, and we would meet, in my opinion, all all 5.
So in 2010, that's when Plymouthtowne changed to residential special?
So in 2010 is when we basically cleaned up the zoning. All of Plymouthtowne was D-residential. It was an existing nonconformity. How that happened was well before my time. And it was decided that we would take that opportunity to clean up, like I said, the entire complex with the idea of the expansion in mind, which is what happened.
But you didn't pick up this extra lot when did you clean up?
They
So-
didn't own them.
Oh, you didn't own it at the time?
No,
So you
did not
bought
own
it
it.
hoping you would get us to rezone it?
So the original intent in purchasing the 2 parcels was stormwater management. We could have easily developed Plymouthtowne Premier, the 70 units, by using
Right.
underground basins, which, in my opinion, they're not the best design. They maximize the development, maximize what you can develop. So we purchased Jefferson Street and put a big basin there. We used over an acre, which, I was being questioned, but that was the right thing to do. So that's what we did.
Thank you.
The one member of the planning committee who rejected it, did they tell you on what basis they made that decision?
I can only assume, and the questions that she asked had to do with the differences in building coverage, impervious, and green space. We did not convey to her that we actually meet the more stringent code. So I don't know if she had that information, maybe she wouldn't have voted no, I don't know.
Subsequent to her question to the planning commission, did you have an engineer run those numbers and find
Yes.
out that you would meet them all?
That is correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, just one more quick question, just so I know exactly the area you're talking about. Could you just describe for me the parcel right now in terms of where it would be developed and what it looks like right now, geographically, geologically?
If you look at, what exhibit is this?
2.
So, look at exhibit 2. So you see the back of existing Plymouthtowne, the last 3 buildings to the left of the page. And then that first rectangle is the 467 Fairfield. That's about 1.3 acres. Then the next really odd-shaped piece is Jefferson Street. If you look at that dotted line kind of in the middle of it, that's the size of the basin. Further south to that is totally unusable. That's just it's woods, it's sloped. So it's really just next to that basin a little bit towards the back of the page and all of Mr. Traveler's 467 Fairfield Road.
So that does not include any currently wooded areas?
Well, some of that site is wooded. I don't know what you mean by,
Where the apartments would be developed
no.
is not currently a
If you
wooded
look
area?
at the site, it's basically, it's the open, when you're standing on Fairfield Road looking in,
Yep.
it's the open.
Gotcha.
Now, we have a tree line going down in between the two, but that gets replaced
Yep.
with a whole bunch of trees coming through there and on the front.
That answers my question, thank you.
What do you mean by replace the tree line?
Well, I
What
think
kind of,
that's,
are they mature trees or
well, it's a
little
land
trees?
development. I mean, like I said, we'll meet all those required ordinances.
You won't be asking for variances to put little bushes instead of big trees?
We won't be asking for ordinances for number of trees. So whatever the code says, how we have to replace, we'll replace in the correct number.
You're not asking for variance on tree
I'm
replacement?
not asking for any variances tonight. I'm saying in the
But
future.
will you in the future be asking for variances?
I don't think so at this point, but we would have to see during land development. I mean, we did it, the waivers that we were granted in the Premier development
Mhm.
are the same waivers where we would be asking for this 32-unit expansion. It's the same exact ones. And we were not granted any, I mean, you can see all those trees and bushes. We planted over 600.
Yeah, because my concern about that area is there's a lot of flooding. Conshohocken Road is dangerous when it floods, and trees perform an incredible function in absorbing stormwater.
Well, that's why we have that massive above-ground stormwater basin, to hold that water back, clean it, and then slowly release it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. You're welcome.
Anybody else?
You had mentioned the private drive versus public. Is it appropriate to talk about that now? Is that part of this process, or will that be later? It just because Keith mentioned it early on. Because I thought that was decided, maybe not.
Yeah, that was related to the townhouse development.
I see, yeah, and you have private drive on there. And
Yeah, well, that's what we were hoping for, but I mean, we never made it that far to getting final comments. I don't know if Dave or council would have seen it differently as a street and not a private drive. There's different rules.
Right.
You know, the
I'm
private
just saying, is
drive.
it's probably not appropriate to talk about that now. It's nothing to do with the zone.
It's part of the salary process.
Okay.
I have plenty of land development questions for you if we get there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. No,
Anybody else from council before we turn to the audience?
Nope.
Does anybody have comments or questions from the audience? I'm sorry, you're running this hearing now.
That was what I was gonna say, so there you go.
It's after 7.
My name is Kathleen Messina. I live at 452 Volpe Road, so right down the street. I've lived there for 9 years, and in that 9 years, sorry, I get nervous while speaking. The traffic along Fairfield Road has increased exponentially since the development not only of Plymouthtowne 2, but with the regattas, or whatever they're called now, Montgomery Mills, whatever. Trying to make a left out of my street, sometimes in the morning or in the afternoon, is, you can wait almost 5 minutes for a break in traffic. So I just find that that's gonna be an issue, especially once the turnpike entrance or exit ramp is built behind Wawa. That's just gonna be a straight shot right through the neighborhood, which is also an issue because cars that aren't familiar with the neighborhood think that they can use Penn, Jefferson, and Volpe as cut-throughs. And the number of cars that I can see from my front window that are well in excess of the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit is scary, considering the number of children and elderly that we have on our streets. And so, for that and many other reasons, including the green space that I know that you say that we have, but the number of buildings that I'm watching going up through Plymouth Township, just on my side, is insane. All of the buildings that were just built across from Park, all of the 6 new buildings that are going to be built in JFK Park. There's a lot for sale on Fairfield for 1 or 2 new more homes. Part of the charm of Plymouth is its green space, its trees, the fact that it doesn't look like a concrete jungle. It looks like a beautiful residential area. I want to keep that charm. But when you do take away the green space, you're also going to force nature out of its habitat. And in doing so, you're going to force deer and fox into the roads. They're going to be hit. They could kill someone, but they're definitely going to cause property damage. Again, drainage. I'm a commercial insurance agent. I deal with flood. That was one of the first things I learned in my industry. As a result, none of us want to have to add $2,000 or $3,000 worth of flood coverage every year because our zoning will be changed from an X zone, because we drain so nicely here, to an A zone, to where it's flooding almost every year. It's my understanding that there was a rescue on Conshohocken State Road just the other day during that horrible storm. I don't want to see fire engines at the end of my street rescuing people. And I'm really sorry that I am in total opposition to your project. But this is my neighborhood. You don't live there. I want to keep it the way it is and make it better for everybody. I can only speak for myself, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak in front of council tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional?
Hi, I'm Sharon Sabella. Last name is S-A-B as in boy, E-double-L-A. I live at 463 Fairfield Road, right next to the Trolleys, on the corner of the private road. I bought it in 2001, specifically for my son and I. Since then, I have moved out. I live 5 minutes away. My son is disabled. I figured that house would be a perfect, calm house for him, yet entertaining because there's a lot of excitement going on there. That's the best way I could put it. Out in the streets, between the police, stopping people for speeding, and I don't know, the motorcycle races, everything possible that could race has awakened me between 2 and 3 in the morning. I am living with my son now because he had a terrible accident. So I've been there about 3 months, and I had no clue what he was dealing with. It is so loud. I don't know how he sleeps. In living there, I see why he likes that house. I have asked him quite a few times, I can move you. I can take you someplace else that is easier for you. And he just does not want to leave there. And in living there, sitting out on the back deck, it is so nice, quiet. We did have more green space. The woods were really nice. And there's a herd of 15 deer that come and go, and which the Travis and myself and the neighbor behind us, we all feed them, leave them water, take care of them. You never know what you're gonna see in that back piece. I realize, I'm also a realtor, so I realize and I know everything he's talking about. I sold new construction for 15 years. I was a property manager for 5 years. I do disagree with the amount of cars for a 2-bedroom. I realize the township will control how many move in, but that doesn't stop the amount of cars. I tried it, and I ended up towing cars constantly. The amount of traffic will increase. It has increased unbelievably since the last phase. And if this goes through, I'm gonna kick myself because I should have sold it before. When we add even more townhouses, apartments, whatever he can get, our 3 little single homes aren't gonna be worth anything. Nobody's gonna wanna move in there. As I said, I'm at the beginning of that private drive. And if that becomes the thoroughfare for the apartments, forget it. I'm surrounded across the street. This was all one family that had these, and one by one they're dying out. The Travis are the last. Right now, it's a raceway to cut through because they don't want to deal with the traffic on Fairfield. We have 2 little ones under the age of 4 across the alley, and I'm always praying every time I see them outside playing. And next to me, we have another little one. It is extremely dangerous. The people across the street keep putting up signs. Please slow down, save our children. They knock them over driving by. I love Plymouth. The house I live in normally is in Plymouth. Plymouth has always been, and I always thought it was one of the better communities, and I have sold in 5 counties. I always raved about Plymouth Township. Now I'm getting scared, because like you said, it's coming in everywhere. All the green space, all the animals. It's getting to be too much. I realize that we need houses, but I can't imagine that all these apartments are filled. And yet, I am gonna say, I started a nonprofit. I'm in the process of finishing it up for disabled people because I could not find housing for my son. And during my 31 years, I couldn't find housing for other disabled. So I am starting a nonprofit with the help of a contractor who is not just after the money end of it. He wants to help. And we've gone to 5 townships, and we have them begging us to hurry up and find land. That's how badly we need it. And there's only 3 of us. Give us a chance to live in peace. You know, and then you've got the other side of the streets. People just want to live with what is there now. We can't do anything about the traffic now in Fairfield. We're going to have to live with that. I don't see, unless you put a light in between or rumble strips or something, I don't know how else we're going to deal with that. But the Travis are way up in years. They can't afford to move out. I can't, at this time, afford to move my son out. I'm waiting for my own apartment so I have a place to put him. But I know there's a ton of people like my son. He was in a nursing home, and I ended up with 10 people telling me they needed apartments. Could I help them? And there's nothing that's affordable for them on Social Security. So if you could leave the Travis, you know, there's only 3 of us on the right side, and then there's the whole other side across the alley. They're in there for a reason. It's their home and it's affordable. I guess that's it. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
attention.
May I ask you a question,
Sure.
Mrs. Sabella? Are you one of the property owners that,
Yes,
the developer-
463 Fairfield.
I mean, are you one of the ones that was approached as an adjacent property owner to see what your?
No,
property
nobody
owner-
ever approached me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to make a comment. Oh, go ahead. Just before you get started. The last 2 folks mentioned about green space, and I'm sure we all would love to see parts of parcels remain as green space. We don't have the ability here to say to any developer, oh, you can't develop this if they're, you know, if the zoning laws are such that they can develop it either one way or the other. We can't say to anyone who owns property or parcel, sorry, no more development, it's gotta be green space. We don't have that ability. We can't do that. All we're doing here tonight is deciding whether to change it. So either way, whether we agree or not, the owners have the right to develop it, and we can't tell them that they can't develop it. I just wanna make sure people understand that we don't have unlimited rights to tell anybody, oh, you know, your parcel, we like it, we want to keep it as green space, so sorry, buddy, you can't develop it. We can't do that.
My name's Nicholas Whitney. I live at 303 Lucetta Street, so I'm right down the street from the Fairfield people. But I know you just mentioned some of the green space, and I didn't get a chance to see the map comparing the townhomes versus the apartments. But in terms of the amount of green space that would remain, depending on which plans, obviously, they can still develop either one. But if there's more green space that could still exist in the townhome plan versus the apartment plan, then I wouldn't rezone and create the apartments. Because I'd rather at least preserve as much green space as we can, because as both have mentioned before, that spoke before me, already the wildlife is going crazy. I was speaking to a few neighbors on Jefferson and Volt the other day, and the amount of gardens that are already getting destroyed by the deer going through the neighborhood between that parcel on Jefferson and JFK Park is already astounding. So the more that we lose, the more that that's gonna happen and the crazier it's gonna get. Obviously, traffic problems are also a concern. Which one of these is going to create less traffic? You asked one of the questions about the cars. I didn't feel I got a clear answer out of that. And I wanna know which one is going to create less amount of cars, but less amounts of cars. As we know, the apartments are already getting packed, the amount of tows that have been called, I forget which one of you mentioned that. But that's going to be crazy, the amount of cars on the street. And you want to pick whatever plan is going to create less amount of cars. And when you have townhomes, I would assume that there's going to be less cars. You're just gonna have the two of the family. There might be more going in and out depending on families that visit, but you're not gonna have the same amount of cars that come in an apartment complex, especially with the lesser amount of units. And then I think one of the other things you have to consider is the impact on the Colonial School District. You have right across from Plymouth Elementary a bunch of homes going up. You know, earlier they talked about the renovating the one building by the Plymouth Meeting Mall into apartments as well. Which one of these is gonna create less of a burden, less units to pack Colonial School District? Because Plymouth Elementary is already bursting at the seams, and they just had an addition put on. And if it's going to create more problems for Plymouth Elementary, that's gonna create more problems for the school board. They're gonna have to renovate more buildings, put on more additions, and that's gonna put a bigger burden on all of us that live here and live in the Colonial School District, because all of Plymouth Township is in there, and we're gonna be paying higher property taxes on that, because those taxes are gonna go up, because you're gonna need to pay for those buildings. Obviously, that's not Plymouth Township, but that's an effect on the constituents of this council. That is going to happen, whichever one of these plans goes through. I'm good with that.
Thank you. Additional comments, questions?
Hi, my name is Ann Hassis, 410 Volpe Road, Plymouth
What was your
Meeting.
name, ma'am?
Ann Hassis, Hassis. And as I'm looking at this map here, if they want to make this a private drive and bring that road right out, over here, my road, so here would be the new road, here's my road. So we're gonna have cars coming out, so if you put a light in at that spot, you know what kind of, you have a light here at the top of Sandy Hill and a light here at the bottom by the Walla. So you're gonna have 3 lights on one road. So people are like, well, I'm not waiting at that light, so I'm gonna make a right onto Volpe or Jefferson or Penn, and the traffic is just so bad that I can't even go out in my front yard and walk around my car in a driveway. And which is like, because cars come down the street zooming, and we do park on the street because we don't have enough spot in our driveway. And there's cars that come down at nighttime and we're like, oh my God, they're gonna sideswipe our car. They're doing 50 miles an hour. No lie. We had a race down our street one night. It was 2 cars. Yeah, just going down, zooming down the street. And we're like, you know, those loud ones that make all that noise. And we're in the middle of the night, we jump out of bed, like, you know, did they hit something? It just sounds like they're gonna blow up. Same thing on Fairfield. One night there was SUVs and dirt bikes and quads. It was all coming down. It had to be 20 or 30 of them, right? Just zooming down Fairfield, right? And right onto Ridge Pike, zooming down. And I'm like, how much more are we gonna do? We don't need any more. We don't need more traffic. But if there anything, if you guys are gonna approve anything, personally, I think the apartments, because these townhomes, I don't need an extra road. Fairfield doesn't need any more exits. You know, if all the traffic is gonna go out to the top of the hill, top of the hill, out of the apartment, the original, that's fine. But eventually, this gets too much traffic. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather not see this road coming out because that's too close to where Volpe is, and it's just too many exits onto Fairfield that we have to maneuver around. People are maneuvering around them to try to get to Sandy Hill, so they cut through our development to get to the top of Sandy Hill, and they race. Thank you.
Mr. Tronetta, just a quick follow-up question. And again, it's probably for a later conversation, but just a theoretical. If it remained in the current zoning and it would have to be a separate, completely separate development from the apartments.
Absolutely.
You would have to have that entrance and exit onto
Yes.
Fairfield Road, correct?
That's correct.
If it was rezoned where it could be more conforming to the existing apartment complex, would there be more flexibility in whether or not, or how, an entrance or an exit appears on Fairfield?
So with the rezoning and the apartment use, that goes away completely, if that's your question.
Yeah, I was, just, I asked because on the exhibit,
So the exhibit, you see, I know it's very confusing, but that exit out, or that entrance there is only for emergency vehicles. It will be chained off. With that being said, it's my opinion that we don't need that. And also as a side note, the Montgomery County Planning Commission also agrees with that. Because there's two existing full movement emergency access already for Plymouth Town. So if we get to merge that in, that would go away if council agreed and the fire marshal. And we utilize the existing improvements, which is why I said it's good to internalize all that so we can lean on those existing improvements. It's less impact to the town.
that answers my question, thank you.
Just one follow-up to what Ann was saying and the others about the traffic.
What was your name again, ma'am?
Kathleen Messina. Our streets, Penn, Volpe, and Jefferson, are basically 3 cars wide. It's 2 on either side parked, and you have 1 throughway. The neighbors have always been very considerate. We pull over, we wave, you know. It's not the same when it's not the neighbors. They are aggressive, and they will not pull over. And when I tell you that there is not a whole lot of wiggle room, I have to bring in mirrors. I'm parked almost on my curb some nights, just to make sure that I don't get hit. And again, and I know that this doesn't sound very nice, but I live there. I feel like I should get priority because I do live there. I own that land. That's my home. And yes, people in apartments do live there too, but they don't have the same kind of feeling of ownership because they don't own it. And I was in an apartment for years before I moved into my home. And it is a different feeling. I don't know if anyone else on council has done it, but I have. And I love my neighborhood. I don't want to see it change more drastically than it already has been. So, thank you.
Sorry, Sharon Sabella, 463 Fairfield. I neglected one of the most important things only because I am very passionate about what is happening. I also wanted to mention that since I have been there in 463 Fairfield, I have seen water pouring into that basement since the new construction. I am at the bottom level. The townhouses are here, then the Travis, then me. They have paved driveway. I had a friend come out who does basement flooding, and he said, no, you're fine, but I'll show you where it's coming. And I realized, I called the township, they said you have to bring in an engineer. Well, I don't have the money for an engineer right now. I am semi-retired because I am going into this nonprofit. He showed me the water is coming from those townhouses. They're going under the paved driveway, and they're coming right in the back behind my deck. And I didn't even know there was this enormous hole. And he says, you can see the line coming. And it is going into the basement. My son is not, he doesn't go down in the basement much. He has no clue. I don't know how long it's been doing it. I'm assuming it was recent because I do go down the basement and check whatever needs to be checked. And I had, little stuff coming in from my basement stairs, but not in the corner where it is now. I curled under there and pushed buckets of dirt and stones to fill it up. And I've been fine now. but I'm not gonna be able to crawl under there much more. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Irene Fiorillo. I live at 512 Fairfield Road. I'm almost across the street from the entrance, one down from Penn Road. I'd just like to say that I agree with the gentleman that townhomes would probably be a little bit less of a burden than another apartment. I mean, not only did they take all the woods when they just did this apartment addition, but they added the Wawa at the bottom of the hill. Now, he said he had 235 units to Plymouthtowne. Right at their back door is the Point and the Regatta apartment buildings, and at their back door is the Nexus. So right across the street from me, you could say there's 760 some apartments just in that little tiny area already. And with the new Wawa at the bottom of the hill, as everyone else is saying, the traffic is crazy. It's just all hours of the day and night. They're doing drag races down the hill on both sides of the street, not caring if there's cars coming in the opposite direction. It's a crazy sight for something, me being there over 25 years, that I've never seen before. In the winter, because Plymouthtowne only has one entrance and one exit to the apartments, the hill is so steep when it snows that the cars cannot make it up to that entrance. So that Fairfield Road becomes a parking lot. The police are called, they have to push all the vehicles out of the way. There was a enormous tractor trailer stuck this past winter, I think it was, or maybe the winter before. It took them so long to get heavy equipment to Fairfield Road to get that tractor trailer moved, because these people could not even get to their homes, to their apartments, because they only have the one entrance in and out. The Regatta or the Point, whatever they call it, their main entrance in and out is Sandy Hill Road. They can only go Sandy Hill Road. So if they want to go to Wawa, of course everyone frequents Wawa. We all do, even the homeowners. They have to go up and down Fairfield Road. So the traffic, the light turns red, the traffic at certain times of the day gets backed up all the way down the hill. So that's why they're saying, whoever can make a turn on any street they can, just to get away from the traffic, they do. Now, I see the police have put a sign in the middle of the road down next to the park, so people will actually slow down. The trash trucks have to get out, move that slow sign just to get down the street, because they allow parking, of course, on both sides of the road. And only one vehicle at a time can get down the street, even a regular car. So if you're coming down, someone's coming toward you, you have to kind of pull over to the side like you're going to park in order for the other vehicle to pass. And that's the way it's been for a while now. But with even more additional apartments, as I said, those people are scooting down any way they can to get away from waiting in line to get up Fairfield Road. Well, of course, some of them do, because that's where the entrance to their apartment building is, so they have no choice. But they could cut down Volp and around the Penn and then just go right over into the apartments. But the traffic and the noise level, we have those teenagers on those, whatever they call them, ATVs or recreational vehicles, just going, it looked like a parade one day. It actually looked like a parade. How many of these vehicles were just zooming down Fairfield Road as if they were never going to stop. They have drag races in the middle of the night, just going down Fairfield Road. I have a brand new neighbor. She hasn't been on the corner of Fairfield and Penn for, I'm going to say, 3 months. She wants to move already. She said if she would have known that this property was going to be like that, she would have never moved into Plymouth. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just just gonna follow up as well, because there's an interesting, especially when Ann mentioned in relation
Can
to,
you just repeat your name?
Nicholas Whitney. One of the things that Ann mentioned in relation to the road, if the townhomes go through, you have another exit point on Fairfield, which is going to really affect the safety of the road. But obviously, possibly, the townhomes might affect the number of cars on the road and the number of green space that you might still be able to have. So I'll just say this as a general statement, even though anybody that owns property can develop how they want it, when you have two options, and both options have such glaring flaws, maybe you should take a thought and not develop it at all.
Can I make it? While we're waiting for this gentleman here, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody, all the townspeople that came out to speak tonight and give us your opinions. It really is refreshing to see. It's nice, and we welcome both sides of everything. I just had a question for Keith, or maybe his attorney here. I'm looking at the green space question. Both plans look to have about the same developable space. Can you say offhand which one will actually impact the area of maybe less square footage, or just to address the green space issue? Because remember, everybody, something's going to be built here regardless. But
I think it's a misnomer to say that you should or shouldn't vote in favor against this based on green space.
that wasn't my question. I just want to know which one has less of an impact.
The requirement for a minimum area of green area for the RS district is 40%. The requirement for D residential is 50 to 55%. However, the proposal by Plymouthtowne is for 61% green area. So the fact that green area factors into this is a misnomer. It doesn't have anything to do with how much green area there's going to be, because the proposal is to exceed both requirements and go above and beyond what the ordinance requires for. So this is not a developer who's coming in and saying, I meet the number and I'm not doing anything more. They're going above and beyond both ordinances.
That sounds great, but it still didn't answer my question.
Yeah, I don't have,
Just a guess. I'm just saying which one,
the apartments is more.
because they both look about the same to me on the drawings. I didn't think there was anything that was negligible, if anything. They asked about that. It looked to me like it was the same. I just wanted to confirm what I was looking
I
at.
have to guess, and I would have the engineers check, but it's close with the apartments.
All right.
More green space than the town.
Right.
I'm sorry, did I hear correctly that the apartments would have more green space than the townhouses?
He's saying by a little bit.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to make that big a
It's not,
difference.
it's
Not from what I saw,
negligible.
yeah.
No, but again, like the attorney said, Mr. Bagley, the important point there is that we're far exceeding the requirement.
Yeah, that's great, yeah.
Paul DeSanto, 456 Volk Road. I kind of agree with everybody here. As far as the green space goes, you're absolutely right. You can't tell them not to develop. So I'm looking at it at the point of this. So one, we have no traffic studies in effect as of right now. The injustice was, number one, was the Wawa put down at the bottom of the road, number one. That's now here. We now have to deal with all of us in the whole development. Looking at it, because I know it's going to be developed, as I look at it and say, townhomes, I own apartments myself, townhomes and whole scenario, the difference would roughly be about 20 cars. And I hate to say this because I know some of my neighbors are gonna be mad at me, but there's really a 20-car difference. Because if you get a 3-bedroom townhouse and there's a mom and dad and 2 kids and there's 4 cars, and Keith was mentioning the last time, half of them are 1-bedroom apartments, the other 2 are 2-bedroom apartments. So it's roughly a 90 to a 72 split. My concern, and I think Ann and a couple others is I do not want that road coming out onto Fairfield. Because Fairfield's bad enough now, and if we throw another access point onto that road, now it becomes 100 times worse, one. Number two, and I spoke to Keith, if the apartments, I know something's being approved, and everyone has to realize that. You guys gotta realize the same as us, something's getting approved. So, being said that, if the apartments is less and the green space is more, and however you wanna look at it, impervious, non-impervious. I think the true injustice on this area, in this development, would be another access point onto Fairfield Road. I spoke to Keith the other day. I wanted since 1972, right, 72? So 72, I lived there my entire life. And you know what? You never knew Plymouth Town Apartment was there. You know why? Because it was buried in trees the entire time. You had the one entrance and the one exit, and the rest of it was buried in trees. You never even seen it. My concern, if we go through the apartments, I would rather have the apartments in the sense that I want to know that there be no more access onto Fairfield, than what there is now. And I know we spoke about it before, was the main entrance on Penn and the two egresses, one on Sandy Hill and one on Fairfield, that's actually chained off. But my concern would be what was left would be completely wooded. So therefore, as it was back in '72, and the whole time we grew up in the whole area, it's all buried under trees. Because of that, again, and to your question about it is, if it's not seen, it's out of sight, out of mind. So if we, and the property values the whole thing. To me, I know something's getting developed. I just don't want another access onto Fairfield. Yes, the traffic's there. The traffic's going to be there. I'm hoping that the studies show that we need a slip right and a slip right on the top of Fairfield, because the shoulder is always being used as a right-hand turn anyway, and it's not. It's a shoulder. It's not an access point. So I'm hoping during the studies, which I would have loved to see the studies first, but that doesn't happen because I know everything falls in play here. But I would like to know that that would be the next concern. If I know something's getting developed. For me, again, I lived there my entire life. I think the worst thing we can do is put another access point in or out of the apartments on Fairfield. And again, I would love to see the studies on where it's going. As far as the green space goes, yes, it's a shame, but guess what? No one's going to stop progression of everything. So I don't know. Like I said, I think for me, I know it's going to get developed. What it gets developed with, I don't know. I just think we should not have another access point. And on that same point, being that I spoke to Keith, bury it again. Just bury it under the trees. Just bury it, because in this way, out of sight, out of mind. And if someone's, I know the Hasses live right across the street. Charles was here the other night. He's directly across from that. Imagine when that poor guy wants to sell his house, and there's all these units. It's inevitable. No one wants to live right across a whole apartment complex like that. But if it's buried behind the trees like it's been since 1972, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, or it just doesn't become an issue. And as far as Wolf Road and everyone coming across, the same idea. All of a sudden, you're gonna have these townhouses, and it's just a runway. It's coming right in. And what are you gonna do? Put a traffic light there? Fairfield's a disaster now since the Wawa got put in, which I'd love to talk to them people who said that was a good move. But anyway, it's a disaster already. You know what I mean? And now we're gonna go through all this other stuff and put another access point. No more access points. Keith's gonna develop it, whether you like it or not, it's coming. So whatever's coming is coming. I'm saying for us who live in there, I'm pretty sure you're gonna agree, you don't want a road straight across from Fairfield. You don't want another stop sign in the middle of the road. And neither do I, and I'm pretty sure neither does anyone else. As far as the cars go, it's a 90-72 split if you wanna look at it on a basis between how many people are gonna live in a townhouse, 3,000, what are you gonna be, 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet if you put a townhouse in? All right, so there you go. So now it's gonna be a family of 4, a family of 3 or 4, compared to a 1 unit. And again, I know this might sound like he's on Keith's. It has nothing to do with that. It has with me living here and trying to figure out the least amount of damage it's gonna cause. It's gonna get developed. The green space is back there. That's been there 100 years. As far as the water goes, I know he's talking about fixing it up. We just have to pay more attention to this. So whatever you guys decide to do, I'm only saying on my behalf, and I think as far as the people on Volp Road and on Penn and everything else, let's not put another access point on Fairfield. And then, if you have anything to do with the traffic studies, let's really focus in on the traffic to alleviate, to get something moving, not to have it back up. Germantown Pike, I don't want it to be a Germantown Pike. I joke around going, oh, you go down Germantown Pike, takes an hour to get down, up and down Germantown Pike. And because there's a traffic light, and a traffic light, and a car, and the mall, and the buildings, let's not do this here. Let's not do this here. I know you all don't live in the same development, and I know you're not right there, but it's Plymouth. Let's, you know what I mean? There is a little bit too much building, but let's just try to figure out the easiest way to cope with this. And I'm sure John doesn't want to have to deal with this every other day, because I'm sure that's his calls all the time. Oh, somebody's driving. Listen, people are going to fly around and they're going to drive crazy no matter what. I'm pretty sure we're speaking on the part of, just let's not have another access point. Let's limit that. I know there's 2 egress entrances and exits for there and the main. And I mean, that's pretty much all I can say for now. So thank you for your time.
But Paul, how about when you get all the green lights on Germantown Pike? That's like heaven.
Yeah, sure. Let me know what time you're going down that road, I'm gonna follow you. My name's Charles Fazio, Sharon, my wife there. I live on Harvard Road, I'm not near there, but my concern is, I love the police. These guys work hard, and within the past few months, we've had shootings, different kind of things at apartment complexes. One thing nobody has touched on is the crime. Now, if you're a homeowner in Plymouth Township, you take pride in your property, you look out for your neighbors, and you cover each other. But if I'm renting, I don't care about this place, I don't care about the neighbors, I'm there temporary. And with some apartments, you don't get good people in there, and that could lead to more crime. And that's something we don't want to see in the township. It's already gone up, you see stuff coming up from the city. In my neighborhood, it's a good neighborhood, cars stolen. We don't need more of this, and with apartments, your caliber of people isn't a real resident that takes pride in their property. So that might be another thing to consider. Townhouses might be better. They were advertising $650,000 homes on that property. I wanted to buy one. How come they're not building them? Now it's apartments? You know, put money in the pockets. Let's take care of the township and the people that want to live here. And let's keep the crime down with apartments. Who knows? Section 8 might be in there. Who knows? And crime follows. We don't need more of that. Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions from the audience? Anything additional from council? It's your job.
Okay. At this point, a motion to close the public hearing will be appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
I believe you're doing roll call.
Okay, so a motion to close the hearing has been made by Mr. Gannon and seconded by Ms. Bandish. And at this time, I will make a roll call vote on, I guess, the wording of the
Just to
motions.
close the hearing.
Just to close the hearing.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a, okay, there's a motion, there's a second, to close the hearing. Ms. Bramblett.
I agree to close the hearing.
Favor, Mr. Higgins.
In favor.
Mr. Gannon.
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett.
Bandish.
Ms. Bandish, I'm sorry.
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor.
Same initials.
And now a motion with respect to the approval or denial of the ordinance would be appropriate.
Is there a motion to approve? Should I do them separately or?
If there's any motions.
Is there a motion to approve or to deny the request for the change of zoning?
I make a motion to approve.
There's a motion from Mr. Higgins to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second from Mr. Gannon.
You take a vote on that motion.
We'll take sorry, we don't have a lot of hearings, so
That's okay.
usually better than that. We'll take a vote on the motion to approve the change in zoning. Ms. Bramblett.
Oppose, based on what I've heard from the residents, those who live there, and the fact that there could be a way to develop that property using the existing entrance for the Plymouthtowne apartments. So I vote to oppose that.
Mr. Higgins.
In favor.
Mr. Gannon.
In favor.
Ms. Bandish.
I oppose too. I think the one thing that we hear is about density, changing zoning to create more density. I'm torn because I listened to the arguments about a separate entrance and exit and more traffic that could possibly happen. But I don't think that 16 units would generate that much more traffic. So keeping in mind the fact of stormwater, the concerns about the water runoff, concerns about density within the township, I oppose also.
And I'll just add that I appreciate all the comments and concerns addressed by the residents tonight and those that were sent in to us via email as well. And obviously, you know, talking about development is difficult no matter what, but we have to decide as a council, you know, how best to conform to the zoning that we have and what best works in the areas where they're at. And sometimes we need to change that and sometimes we don't. I do believe in this case that a change of zoning on this parcel would be more conforming to the existing parcel, so I vote in favor.
And that concludes the hearing.